Did you know that reaching 1500 is putting you to the 97th percentile on chess.com Rapid? What you're about to see in this video will give you step-by-step guidance on how you can reach level 1500 and thus become better than 97% of the people playing on the platform. Hello everybody, we are continuing our series on this rating climb. Today we will talk about how you can reach the level 1500 on chess.com. It's not an easy feat. Can you see how many players there are on chess.com that are below the level 1500? This will already be quite an achievement for you if you reach this rating. So I will tell you the typical mistakes around 1200, following up from our last episodes, and how 1500s have solved these problems. And in the end, I will also tell you typical issues that are faced by 1500. So please listen to me carefully if you're also around 1500 so you can take lessons accordingly. For this project, I've looked at hundreds of games that are played online to identify whether there are some skills that are emerging on a certain order in one's chess progress. Yes, I'm doing sort of a scientific investigation of developmental psychology of our chess expertise, because that's super interesting to me. If there are certain skills, for example, calculation, opening, rook endgames, that are following in a certain progress, in a certain order, because if we can identify those skills, right, we can give much more specific advice to you people out there. That's also my mission with this project as a chess coach, also to become a better teacher in the end, so I know exactly what type of problems that are faced by each rating group. We'll be following these 4 questions in this episode as well. This is how I structure this entire series, folks. First, we will see the common issues at lower levels, around 1200, connecting to our previous episode, remember? And then we'll see how 1500 solve these problems. And then I will tell you exactly what you should be focusing on in a much more specific way to reach the level 1500. And in the end, I will conclude with typical errors for 1500. Let's continue with the issues that are faced for 1200s, folks. Remember from last episode, I showed you this example. One of the common problems for 1200s was their lack of safety issues with their king. For example, in a position like this, white player, around 1200 person, played c3. And this is a very bad move for strategic reasons, right? It's a pawn storm situation, it's an attack on both flanks, and white is wasting time to begin with, plus he's pushing a pawn around his king, creating further weaknesses. And in fact, if black actually push a3 in this position, he'll be able to destroy the whole chain, then attack on the queen side, okay? But after c3, black goes queen c7, and white does knight f3. Here, again, 1200 person. Do you think black should take on h4, or should black wait for white to take on e7? In the actual game, black made a mistake. He took on h4. That's also a common issue, right? People are not exchanging on their own terms. And here, please tell me, folks, which threat is black facing in this position? Yes, queen f6 is a big threat, which was completely missed by black. He took on e5, white saw it, and white was mating black. Black had to resign. So underlying issue is this. The typical problem for 1200s was this, first of all, the exchange problem, right? Exchanges are usually blind. They don't exchange on their own terms. But more importantly, when it comes to tactics and calculation, they were missing the threats if the opponent's last move was a recapture, right? Because queen h4, to his mind, is only a mere recapture. He is refusing to see the threats presented by that recapture. Remember, this was a very common problem. And around 1500, we start seeing that people are getting better in this. They pay much more attention to the opponent's last move, even if it was a recapture. Remember, there were lots of chess crimes going on around 1200, strategic chess crimes. For example, in this position, white started a nice move f3, kicking the knight from that beautiful spot. And can you believe white's next move was? Oh my god. Yes, he played f4 in the actual game, giving this beautiful, juicy e4 outpost to the black knight. White committed a chess crime because he's awakening an enemy piece for no reason, right? It's a completely unforced strategic blunder, which is only helping the black knight in this position. This is also a very common problem around 1200. We will see today, very interesting, 1500s are getting better at this, but they are committing a more advanced chess crime when it comes to awakening the enemy pieces. Please remember this position, folks, because we will connect to this later on. Remember, another problem for 1200s was the poor handling of rook endgames. Rook endgames should be played with an active rook, right? Rook activity is the most important strategic factor in rook endgames. In this position, white, please stop the video and find the best move for white. Please. Yes, the best move by far is rook d6. Activity, right? White is putting pressure on that pawn. After a5, white can even go rook b6, right? Hitting the pawn, chasing the king away on the 7th rank. It's a beautifully active rook, and white has no problems. The game is equal. In the actual game, can you guess the chess crime which was done by a 1200 person? Yes. He simply goes rook c1 to passively defend his weakness on c3. Terrible, right? This was a very common thing in around 1200. And of course, after rook c1, black has many ways to go for advantage, winning advantage. In fact, for example, rook c5 is a pawn, or even rook c4 followed by rook a4, black takes over, right? We should not play rook endgames like this. And this knowledge, this practice is becoming available for 1500. Please bear with me, folks. I will show you a very nice rook ending handling for a 1500 person today. Yes, now we continue with the things that 1500 people can do. I will show you a beautiful example to start with to show you what has changed, what is becoming available to a 1500 person. It's a beautiful game. Please watch this game with the lens of orienting towards weaknesses and weak pawns. White is a player around 1500, black is around 1400. So it's a beautiful example of how you are beating a weaker person around 1500. Okay, so it's a Sicilian battle so far. e5, queen c4 is not the best, so white's actually not playing this phase very, very nicely. But here, I want you to focus already around here, bishop c4. White starts noticing the weak square on d5 and orients his pieces to those squares. Bishop g5, also another nice move. It's totally designed, right, to exploit the weak square on d5. Around 1500, this is also becoming available to people. Yeah, exchanging of a piece that was fighting for d5, right? White's following a plan. Here, the best move is probably castle long, keeping it flexible. What white directly jumps to the outpost on d5 with a big threat, of course. Black sees that. And here, long castle. Just notice how white orients his pieces towards those weaknesses. After bishop e6 comes this interesting part. White goes knight e3, folks. And please stop the video and tell me whether black should take on c4 or whether black should wait for white to take on e6. In only after 4 seconds, the black player, around 1400 person, takes on c4. Again, exchanging on the enemy terms, because after takes, this d6 weakness cannot be holdable anymore, right? It's a terrible exchange for black. Black is losing a pawn for nothing. And instead, if black just kept this tension between those pieces and just, for example, play the move, for example, bishop e7, right? Just defending this guy on e7, then it will be fine for black, right? Because if you take my bishop, then I take back and I start covering my weakness on d5. Again, around here, double pawns. People don't want to have double pawns and they don't want to see the good things that are presented by double pawns. So to me, this game is a perfect illustration of exploiting a weakness in the position, which is becoming available to 1500, which means they can able to generate good middle game plans, right? Because they can orient themselves towards weaknesses in the position. And that's the key, because before this level, this was not visible, right? Remember, 800, 1000, 1200 videos, remember, this was not so available to these people, forming plans around weaknesses, going for exchanges, for example, for weaknesses, right? Let's talk about calculation, okay? Very important area. Remember, 3-ply calculation was becoming available to a 1000 player. 1200s were able to do it. They could go even a little bit deeper than that. Around 1500, we see that they can really engage in 5-ply calculations as well with accuracy. Please check this example, folks. In this position, white goes knight b5. It's a trappy move. It's actually not such a, let's say, logical move in the opening, but white calculates a line. White sees that if black goes c6, simply to chase away that knight, he has a devastating move here. Can you see it, folks? Bam! d4, and the queen has no way to guard the c7 square anymore. So knight c7 is the next move and white wins. You see, white is able to see this from afar. One move for myself, one move for the opponent, one move for myself, and wherever the queen goes, right, of course, he should also see that. The queen has to go somewhere, right? For example, here, right, queen f5. He can see that knight c7 wins the game directly, right? Beautiful, accurate 5-ply calculation starting from here. This is becoming available to a 1500 person that was not so available, right, around 1200. Interesting. Another 5-ply calculation moment that 1500s can do, folks. In this position, imagine that black's last one was d6. I want you to, first of all, see the threat. Are you facing a threat right now? That's an easy question because, yes, you're facing this e5 threat. And can you find a move for white that is multi-purpose? That is actually a very good positional move for you right now, which is also stopping the threat. Congratulations if you found the move that was found by a 1500 player, castle long. White just makes his most natural move and says, you know what, if you go e5, well, you tell me, folks. Obviously, bishop takes e5. White is able to calculate this sequence with accuracy, 5-ply calculation, and white parries the threat while also castling his king. Beautiful, right? So taking a step back, since white can engage in 5-ply calculation, white can combine strategy with tactics, right? White can actually make the most logical move strategically, castle long, by also combining it with seeing the threats, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful idea for white. It's only available if you can engage, right, in this 5-ply calculation. Going back, folks, why is this 5-ply, right? Because 1-ply for white, 2nd-ply, 3rd-ply, 4th-ply, and 5th-ply. White can see this. And only around 1500, this is starting to be fully established, right? We didn't see this kind of depth and accuracy before in our project. 1500s, they can even engage in 3-ply positional calculations, right? They can use some tactics to improve a piece, for example. Can you see one such idea for white in this position? Please stop the video and improve a piece, a badly placed piece, to a great square using some tactics. Congratulations, folks, if you saw the move which was found by a 1500 player, knight h5, exploiting this pin, hitting the queen, and obviously, right, the idea is to jump to this beautiful f6 outpost with the knight, improving a piece tremendously using short calculation, right? Beautiful. After queen c4 comes this check first, and here actually that's interesting. Would you trade the queens in this position, or would you keep them on the board as white? I'm just checking your skills of navigating piece trades in chess. Congratulations if you say no queen trade and you found the move queen d2. Well, a couple of reasons. Because the enemy king is not so safe. There are so many attacking ideas for white in this position still. Plus, you don't want to improve black's pawn structure, right? You don't want to improve black's pieces. Well, unfortunately, that's exactly what a 1500 player did in this position, right? He was able to get his knight to a beautiful spot on f6 using some tactics, right? But then he actually failed strategic exchange in that position. Interesting. Around 1500, the sense of danger starts to improve. People start to notice their king's safety more than 1200s. Remember the first position today? The dangers around their king wasn't so visible for a 1200. But around 1500, it's becoming much better already. In this position, black has 2 extra pawns. White just goes bishop g5, okay? So I want you to first of all spot the threat you're facing and then find a great move for black. Please stop the video and engage in this calculation. Congratulations. First of all, if you notice your king is still in the center and you have 2 pawns up, but you're facing a threat of takes followed by takes, that's a threat you're facing. You have to be careful. And did you find this move, folks, which was found by a 1500 person? It's a beautiful move. Queen trade obviously favors black, and you're also stopping white's idea of first taking the knight and then taking on c6, right? Beautiful move. And if the queen actually goes to a6, that's the only way to keep contact with the pawn and renew the threat. Can you see black's next move? Folks, Beautiful if you found queen b6, right? Great sense of danger. Obviously, queen trade is favoring black, 2 extra pawns, right? Weaker king. And here, black is solving all of his problems. You can even win the 3rd pawn with a great position, right? But only a player who has a great sense for king safety and sense of danger can engage in this move. Folks, Rook Endgames also improve for 1500 players. Remember the first position today? The 1200 was failing miserably in the Rook Endgame when it comes to playing with an active Rook. Here we also see a big jump actually. That's interesting. Check this game out. It's equal material right now. Black, a 1500 player, starts playing beautifully. Rook f5, hitting a target, winning a pawn, invading the 7th rank. Just look how actively he's playing with his rook, right? That's of course a very passive move for white, but everything is hanging. e5 starts improving his king, and white player actually starts going wrong in this position. That's a terribly passive move, right? White is just below 1500. That's also interesting, right? White starts playing with the passive pieces, but black, in contrast, starts playing with active pieces. Just look at the general strategy for black in this position. Just look how he's playing with active pieces, active king and active rook to outplay white. Not move by move, but look at the general handling of a rook endgame. I think that's the most interesting because this is not available for a 1200 person. And this was actually one of the most surprising results. That around here, people start playing with great activity in rook endgames in a correct way. Just look at the black king, right? Step by step invading, step by step improving, attacking the rook, pushing the pass pawn. Black is engaging in great rook endgame understanding here to push the pawn to his promotion square. Yeah, driving the king away, supporting the pawn, and that costs, of course, white the pawn. And that's also interesting. Yeah, he just doesn't mind this exchange because he also sees that he's winning this pawn endgame easily, right? Of course, pushing the pawn, and black wins. Folks, I told you so far what 1500s can do. Finally, when you're stopping, I will also tell you typical issues that are faced for 1500 players. Please be aware of those if you're around 1500 around here. Please ask yourself those questions. Are you also failing from similar processes? And give me feedback, please, on YouTube. Maybe what I'm showing you right now doesn't speak to your mistakes. Maybe you're making all different kind of mistakes. These are my general understanding and general patterns. Everyone's chess life is different, obviously. I'm talking about general patterns that I witnessed in this project. The problem usually for 1500s, also for many players, is this, right? They sometimes are missing all the threats that are presented as a result of the opponent's last move. Check this position. Bishop b5 was white's last move. Can you tell me the threat that you're facing? What is the real threat you're facing actually in this position? Because black in the actual game didn't see the real threat and he simply moved the bishop to d7. And can you tell me what white did? Great. You're a great player if you actually identified rook e1 as the main idea, behind bishop b5, right? This was the threat, real threat that is presented as a result of white's last move, right? But white is having a tunnel vision. He's only focusing on the piece which is just moved, right? So black wasn't paying attention to the new opportunities and avenues that are presented to the white rook as a result of the bishop move. This is a typical mistake type that I witnessed for 1500s. Of course, after bishop d7, rook e1, well, there is no way for black to hold this knight because f3 is coming. Black is in trouble already. In the actual game, he tried queen h4, but after g3, nice move, nice three-ply calculation for white, by the way, because he can see that the queen has to move and then the knight will be captured. Nice calculation, and black lost the piece. Folks, chess is a cruel game. This chess needs constant concentration and attention. You can play the most amazing game in your life and make one mistake, one blunder, and the entire game is lost, right? Unfortunately, chess is such a cruel game. So one typical mistake type issue for 1500s is the consistency problems. I witnessed some of the most amazing games, like strategic games, masterpieces, which are then lost as a result of hanging pieces or random blunders, one move blunders, and so on, right? I will show you one such example here. In this game, white is playing very nicely. White is the bishop pair, and so far, white is making great moves. Bishop c4, opening up the rook, for example, improving the bishop. Just look at step by step what white can achieve. He's a 1500 player. After c5, he sees the threat, the bishop will be buried, and he takes action. Beautiful, right? Removing the piece which is fighting for d5, correct exchange. Follow it up with knight b5, beautiful positional move. After takes, the bishop became a giant on d5, and white stopped the threat of c4, and white achieved this beautiful middle game position where white's bishop is so much better than the black bishop, right? And in fact, after rook d8 even cements this guy on c4. White's playing beautiful positional chess so far. And just when everything is going fine and nice and beautiful, look at what white does in this position. After rook g6, white captures on e5. That's a classical chess game, by the way. White has so much time on its clock at this moment, right? An amazing mistake, which means, you know, those blunders are never going to be completely eliminated in our chess life, right? Because this is a blunder that 800 players were doing, you know, below 800. Folks, I will show you a very interesting chess crime or positional mistake that I witnessed around 1500 that connects to the first crime I show you today for 1200s. Remember, in this position, white plays the move b3, and that's a terrible move, positionally speaking. And can you tell me why? Why is this move a terrible move from a positional perspective? You're a great positional player if you tell me that it's because of b4, and as a result of b4, black is now gaining that d4 outpost for its pieces. Going back. After b5, white can make any move, right? And if black goes b4, since my pawn is protected by the b2 pawn, I'm not going to give you this outpost on d4, right? There is no way for black to gain a central outpost for his pieces. But if white goes b3, which a 1200 person did in the actual game, then black actually found b4, a great move, and now black is actually forcefully gaining d4 because this pawn on c3 is undermined, and there's no other white pawn, right, that can guard that pawn, which means, positionally speaking, white gave away this amazing square to the black pieces. The knight can use it, some other pieces can use it in the future. So this is, you see, one level deeper, one level more advanced chess mistake or positional mistake than 1200s, but this is still a huge positional error that you should be aware of, yeah? For example, b3, b4, if you take on b4, well, if he takes back with this pawn, can you tell me a great move for white? Yes, because this way you're getting rid of your weakness on d3, that will be a great move. But of course, black will recapture with the knight, and black will keep that bind on d4, right? That's a big square. Then now there is no white pawn who can cover that square on d4, and black gains a positional advantage. But it was white, right, who gave it away with this move b3. What is the message? Every pawn move is committal. You should really think twice before pushing your pawns, and you should always ask yourself the pieces. Which black piece of mine will get happier as a result of this pawn move, or am I making the opponent's pieces happier as a result of my pawn move? I made a course about this on Chessable, the art of awakening pieces. That course is full of such patterns. I recommend you to study it, especially for 1500s, right? Now we witnessed that this is an issue for you to get better in this part of chess. You will benefit greatly from that course. Folks, calculation-wise, let's talk about this. 1500s, one issue I witnessed in your game is lack of flexibility when it comes to calculation, right? Obviously, your patterns has improved. You know the basic patterns in tactics, but you sometimes close your mind and you don't look for other resources, other options. And sometimes, and most of the time, you're going for material. Material is acting like a magnetic pull that becomes impossible for you to look at other directions. Yeah, whenever there's a material grab option that is present, you tend to go for it. More on that later on. But check this game out, folks. In this position, white takes on h6. Should black take back the pawn, do you think? Or should black make another move right now? Do you see another great move for black in this position? Yes, the best one will be rook e8, folks, because the rook is lined up against the queen and the king, right? Who cares about this extra pawn in this position? Who cares about that pawn? Just improve your rook and create devastating threats against the white king. In the actual game, 1500 person takes back, and white, no sense of danger in this case, he just recaptures. Again, he does this move because he's gaining a pawn. That's my hypothesis. Around 1500, it's almost impossible for people to refuse pawn offers. They tend to go for material instead of quality improvement, for example, right? And in this case, of course, Rook E8 is on the board forcefully, and suddenly white is facing issues on the e-file. And after long castles, can you stop the video and tell me a winning combination? Not only the first move, I want you to calculate a short but nice line. You might call this a 5-ply calculation. You can do it as 1500 players. Congratulations, if you found the move knight g3, beautiful discovery against the queen, and after queen g2, this is the crux. What is black's next move, folks? Can you see it? Board vision, king safety. Yes, knight e2 would be a devastating move for the white king, because now white has to give up the queen, right? Takes, and black wins. In the actual game, can you guess the mistake of black? Yes, he just took the rook on h1 because he was over-focused, you see, on winning material. He refused to see that there was a better move in the position for black. This is my current hypothesis. Around 1500, people are over-materialistic. And also their calculations are lacking flexibility, right? Black didn't take a step back in a classical game and ask himself whether there were other choices, other checks in the position, right? King safety is more important than exchanging, winning exchanges, right? And of course, he sees it from afar. That's a problem, right? Before he plays rook e8, the moment he plays here, he sees this tactic, right? Everyone can see it. It's easy. So he doesn't change his mind after we reach in this position, after long castle and knight g3, right? You should always take a step back and reevaluate whenever the position actually occurs on the board. Don't trust your previous calculations, right? Because now this is actually happening on the board. You can see it in concrete terms. Give yourself more choices when you calculate around 1500, because this is a typical mistake I noticed that you're making, folks. Well, for the sake of completeness, even knight takes c3 was winning for black with the same idea, right? After queen g2, not knight takes d1, but actually queen knight e2, and the game is already over. The same idea. White must give up the queen and black wins. You might call this, yes, you might call this moment a 5-ply calculation, right? Like one move for myself, one move with the queen, the second move for black, well, one more, and then one more. And you can stop at that moment. You can do it as 1500s. To reinforce my point with materialism, the problems with materialism for 1500s, I will show you this endgame, folks. Remember I told you 1500s, their handling of rook endgames have improved significantly. But whenever they have an extra pawn like this, as in this case for white, right? Oh, white is an extra pawn. They tend to go in a passive mode, right? In this position, can you, for example, find the best move for white? Please take your time and find the best move for white. That is in the spirit of how to play a rook endgame in chess. Yes, the best move is rook e5, folks. By far the most active square for the rook. The rook can go to c5, go to a5, and the rook is just dominating the entire board. In the actual game, white player, because he was up a pawn, he went for a passive mode, right? A passive move. He's only trying to defend stuff. He's giving a defensive task to his rook instead of what the rooks like in chess, right? Activity, attack, and so on. And suddenly, yeah, the moment you start playing passively, black is taking over. Black starts attacking your pawn with active rook, and suddenly your extra pawn doesn't mean much because black can even do this, attack all your weaknesses, and you're losing a pawn, right? That's an incredible mistake. That's an incredibly instructive moment, I think, in this entire game. And I think it's about my hypothesis that materialism is a big issue for 1500s. And this can blur their judgment, right? Extra pawn, material, I want to defend my stuff, that is causing white here to reject a much more active option like rook e5. Because after rook e5, if you do rook d3, then you tell me the move. You tell me the move. Yeah, rook c5, right? Defense and attack at the same time. Beautiful. White takes over the game and obtains a winning advantage as a result of active play. Let's take a step back and summarize what we learned today, folks. 1500s, definitely great improvement over 1200s in many domains. But most importantly, right, they can, for example, engage in 3-ply calculation. That's totally doable. They can even use 3-ply calculation to gain a positional advantage. Remember that knight h5 followed by knight f6 idea? White was using small tactics to improve his knight. In chess, tactics and strategy, they are always intertwined, they're always connected. Also, 5-ply calculation starts to become available for 1500s. Remember those positions? They can be accurate and complete. When I say 5-ply calculation, I mean completeness. They look at all the counter moves, they can calculate 5-ply deep, they can judge the position, evaluate properly, and play it, right? I'm talking about complete and accurate calculations for 5-ply becoming available for 1500 player folks. Also, remember, exchanges are becoming more purposeful. Definitely there are still, improvement potential there, but definitely much better than 1200. Also, remember, they can orient towards weaknesses, weak squares, and weak pawns. They can form plans in the middle game around the weaknesses in the position, clearly. Also, openings in general, of course, they improve. Not too many pawn moves as in 1200s. Remember, 1200s were making too many pawn moves still in the opening. This is going to be resolved around 1500 level. Typical middle game plans is also established, right? Again, big square weaknesses, exchanges for the big squares, typical ideas in the openings is also becoming visible. Opening play generally improves around 1500, and they can play purposefully and planfully in the middle game. And finally, rook endgames, right? We see improvement there as well. Active rook, active king. They start to assimilate and understand the principles of strategic rook endgames. So what should be the focus, right, to reach the level 1500? If we had to be, like, let's say, more precise in our advice to people, definitely strategic lessons, books, and courses are becoming important. Remember, because it's totally about those weakness awareness, piece activity, and pawn play around those weak squares, exchanges. For example, my courses on Chessable, on strategy, 5 courses on strategy are great for this, right? You can do the art of awakening pieces, the art of burying pieces, also exchanging pieces. You start to also work on that slowly. Or, of course, chess crime and punishment, right? Typical strategic issues that are faced around your level. When it comes to the openings, again, I don't advise you to memorize so many lines. You don't need it right now, but learn the openings around the middle game ideas, right? Remember, ask yourself, what am I playing for? Which piece placement is the most correct one in this setup, for example? Typical middle game breaks, for example. Which pawn break I'm playing for? Which exchange am I playing for? Where are the typical weaknesses in my opening setups? Ask yourself those questions, because then you'll start playing great positional chess from the opening already, folks. And also, when it comes to calculation training, right, we understand that they can go a little bit deeper than 1200s. Accuracy is improving. The depth of calculation is also improving. But we also see that they start to identify the threats, opponents' ideas, and opponents' moves, right? 1500s also showing great progress compared to 1200s, also in that realm, right? Seeing the threats, blunder checking your moves and so on is also will be great. Sense of danger, for example, you can solve such exercises. Yeah, the opponent makes a move and you must ask yourself which threat you're facing. Can you parry it? Can you come up with a multi-purpose move which also improves your position, right? This way of calculation training is also will be important for you to reach the 1500. And obviously, right, strategic rook endgames. Endgames are now becoming more frequent in your games, right? Remember, to compare to, the 1000, 1200s, it was not so common. Around 1500, you will see more rook endgames. Again, trust the strategic principles. Don't try to go crazy and memorize all theoretical endgames, but keep it on a strategically sound level. Know, for example, that the king's activity is so important and rook endgames should be played with an active rook, even though you have an extra material in the position. And finally, typical issues and errors around 1500, so you can take lessons accordingly to reach the next level. Remember, consistency was a big problem. They were playing amazingly beautiful chess and suddenly hanging their queen on one move and losing games like that, right? Chess is a tough game that requires constant focus, attention, and concentration. Please be aware of these issues, because if you raise your floor, right, you will see a great rating jump in your game. Also, materialism, right? Remember, this is a huge problem around 1500. Whenever there's an option of gaining material, a pawn or an exchange, right, we were losing objectivity. You're losing your sense of judgment. That pawn is acting like a magnetic pull that you want to go and grab it, and you're losing in touch with the essence of the position, right? Interesting observations here, I think. Also, personally, for me as a coach, right, I'll be much more aware, for example, of these issues around 1500, I will give my students much more directed advice to reach the next level. And again, my upcoming course on Chessable will solve this problem. It will be about material, quality, and time. And how do you negotiate those questions? Is that pawn worth taking? Is that pawn worth defending? And so on. And this is the way that you fix this problem with materialism, folks. Finally, Einstein effect in calculation, which means it's a flexibility problem, right? You notice one idea, it becomes difficult for you to look at a whole different candidate idea, especially if your initial idea involves winning material. Remember that position, white was going for an exchange instead of winning a queen as a result of a check against the unprotected king. It's calculation errors like this that you should be aware of to reach the next level. Also, identifying all the threats was a problem. Remember, you were sometimes seeing a move and interpreting it only one-dimensionally instead of asking yourself, what are all the ideas or threats that are presented as a result of the opponent's last move? Be aware of these issues, folks. And finally, awakening enemy pieces by allowing a pawn break, right? This was one step more advanced issue for you compared to 1200s, but still, pawn play tends to be careless. You make a pawn move sometimes only to help one of your pieces, but you forget about the enemy pawn breaks that can awaken one piece, or they can create a great square, for example, for their pieces. Again, my course, The Art of Awakening Pieces on Chessable, is designed to tackle this problem. Also, my course on Chess, Crime and Punishment involves such puzzles for you to reach the next level. That's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Please send me your feedback and comments, and please like and subscribe if you like this video so we can reach more people and more content will follow in a short amount of time. My next video will be about how we can reach the level 1800 on chess.com rapid, right? So we're becoming stronger and stronger. That will be also interesting for me to witness. What are the changes that are going to happen? And again, give me your ideas, send me your ideas so I can improve my content and my series. I hope you liked it. I hope you got the right lessons for you. I hope I help you use this video as a long-term tool. You can come back to it again and again in the future to take your lessons. When you progress in your chess career, you can always go back, revisit this video to learn the good lessons. And I will catch you on my next video on 1800, folks. Bye-bye.